Hi, and welcome.
I'm Z,
And I'm Keith.
and we're going to tell you about the movie that we just watched. But first, a little bit of a heads up.
Some of the movies we watch deal with heavy subject matters.
In order to talk about these emotionally delicate things and the heavy subject matters that we sometimes cover, we add humor and crude language to add some levity and to process our own trauma.
If that doesn't feel fun or safe for you, we completely understand. Please take care of yourself first and foremost.
And we spoil the end of pretty much every movie that we watch.
Now you know. On with the show.
I guess. I guess I should start this out by saying that I made a mistake in that I was under the impression that they clearly stated her age in the film, and they go
do
real
everything but.
hard not to,
Yeah.
while also just saying how young she is.
Right.
At every chance they get. And they give you a very vague interpretation that she's either 15 or 18. You can guess which one.
Right, because they argue about
Yeah. How.
their age disparity,
Right.
and then it's later stated that he's 43.
Right. So, like, you're not exactly sure.
Yeah.
Make love to me.
I'm 20 years older than you.
28.
25.
And, yeah, so, like. And the way that they make.
It's basically you and I.
Yeah. Me and Martin Donovan, more like.
Fellas.
If he'd ever call me back, God. Jacob. Yeah, this is a movie where
Fellas, does your husband ever talk about a dude he would fuck at the drop of a needle stack?
yeah.
A Haymarket?
The funniest thing, I think about it often. No, I think about it sometimes. It was such a good retort from you. I was trying to say that, like, I wish there were more, like, high resolution. This makes me sound crazy, but I wish there were more high resolution photos of Martin Donovan so I could draw him better. But, like, it's less about, like,
I just want to focus on my fan art.
yeah, no, but I mean, a lot of, like, older images, like, of him are there's not a lot of, like, high resolution older images. So, like, you know, I can't just, like, practice on, you know, how his face has changed, you know, all these normal things. But I was trying to
Do you
say,
have a murder board that you're hiding somewhere?
I was trying to
A
say,
stalker wall?
I was trying to say that, and I said, you know what's frustrating about Martin Donovan and Keith? Just not even breaking a beat said that he's not inside you right now, and I laughed so fucking hard. I was like, that's such a good retort. No, but that's surprising that that's not what's frustrating. It was so fucking funny, and I don't know, like, you'll
So
do that.
graphic.
You'll do that where you'll just, like, come up with something, retorts it on so fucking fast, and it's so frustrating, and I don't know how you
Finishing
do it.
each other's
Sentences.
sandwiches.
Sentences, Bob. Yeah. Anyway,
Thank you. I'd forgotten about that.
it's that one really got me, and then the one where the needful things thing that you said, I know that I was
No,
fucking
you love that one.
stoned. I know that I was stoned, but
Oh,
I
you-
stand by that. Because you were like, you were saying that it wasn't, you were like, you only thought it was funny because you were stoned. And I was like, incorrect. That shit was hilarious. Because he spilled all the silverware, and he said, he was like, well, you know, I did. He, like, made some joke. It's like, he wished
I
that.
got my wish.
Yeah,
At the,
he didn't want, like, he didn't want to have to, like, I don't know. He wanted the silverware to not be in the thing that he had to, I don't know, whatever. And he's like, Needful Things. And I just like, and we had just finished watching Needful Things too. That's why it was like so fucking funny. And I was like pissing my pants. I was laughing so hard. I mean, yes, probably the extent at which I laughed was a little bit the weed, but I was laughing so hard. I literally was like, I might not survive this. I was literally like, I'm going to start crying and it's not going to be, I'm just going to start having a panic attack because it was so fucking funny to me.
So what you've done to Bunny over the last
Yeah.
72 hours?
Yes. Oh, anyway.
I don't know. Should we do it? Maybe we should do an unmentionable about Dune.
Yeah, we probably should. We watched that. We hated
Because we
it.
got plenty of shit to talk on.
Oh my God.
Seems like. I mean, I feel like I do. Keeps coming. Anyway, blame it on Rio.
That was, woof. It's a very funny movie. I remembered it being vastly more boring.
So, in lieu of her maybe being 18, this movie's not nearly as controversial.
I know. I was like, man, I swear, I don't know where I got it from. I don't
Maybe
know
you were confusing it with My Father the Hero.
No, I swear, because I remember watching this and being like, how could they get away with her being 13 this whole time? Right. And I don't know why I thought that. I don't really know I'm like, what did I miss? Like, how did I, like, but I swear to God, I this whole time, and I've watched this movie more than once. It wasn't like I saw it one time, that was it. I watched this movie multiple times for no reason whatsoever. And I was like, she's 13, so I can't really enjoy this because that's just so fucking crazy. But then I'm like, oh, okay. But also the actress was not even 18 yet. And like the nudity was happening. I was like, what the? So also, what? And they go so hard, like showing her, like before they do it, she takes her retainer out. Like they do so many things like that. I'm like, oh God, it's so funny. But the funniest parts are
the IMDb description, the longer one.
Yeah. But those are people written.
Those are fan written.
Yeah.
Or, but calls her 17 years old.
But that's how old the actress was. So I'm just saying, like. Wow.
Fuck. But I'm just proud that we were watching, and I was like, was this based on a French movie?
I thought you said, so I didn't understand what you meant. You said, was this a French movie first? And I was like, I don't know where they released it first. Like, I don't fucking know. And you were like, it was. And I was like, okay, they put it out in France first. I was like, not understanding what you meant. And then I saw you watching like scenes from it, and I was like, oh, you meant like it was a different movie was made.
Yeah.
This was a French film. This was
remake.
based on a French film. I was like, oh, I was like totally did not understand.
So you just put that together like 10 minutes ago?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I was like, okay, they released it in France first. I was like, I'm like, I think that's not.
That's how we talk about films.
I was like, that's not how you make but I was in my head. I was like, that doesn't make it I was like, they're not speaking French, so that doesn't make it a French film. Like, I was like, what? Like, I was not. My brain was.
First, this is a French movie. Second, it's a bedroom farce. You know what I mean?
I do, but the funniest parts. He said like, gross. The funniest parts were of the adoptive father from Rags to Riches and Michael Caine just going at each other. Like every time, like all their back and forth was so
Joey
fun.
Baloney.
They were great together.
No,
they had
I was
great
surprised
chemistry.
that there were any laughs to be had in this movie.
I know.
And there were actually there's some definitely good, like, one-off one-liners kind of shit.
Yeah, definitely.
And their dynamic at times is pretty fucking funny.
Yeah.
So overall, given how, the expectation that this was going to be like really, no.
I feel embarrassed. That's why.
I understand. I've been there. And I'm not trying to shit on you for that or like call you out or something. I'm just saying that was where my mind was. That was the framing. So I was like, wow, I'm surprised that I'm enjoying any aspect of this movie.
Right, yeah. No, I remembered it too as being like really boring. And so I
Yeah.
was watching it and I was like,
I can imagine that. I mean,
this is not
watching
boring.
this as a teen or my early 20s, I would have been
Oh, yeah.
be like, oh my God, shut up.
Yeah, I was legitimately like, oh my God, I don't get I'm like, how did this movie get made? And so my
I mean, that I feel like that question stands.
well, right, yeah. Sorry. I remembered I'm getting a package today and I'm trying to keep track of um oh man,
Michael Caine,
Michael Caine.
Joseph Bologna,
Yeah.
Demi Moore, barely. Like,
This is
this
another
movie
thing.
should really be called Fuck Nicky, I guess.
But that but what's like
And Michelle Johnson as Jennifer.
right, what's interesting
Oh, and Valerie Harper.
yeah, Valerie Harper. Valerie Harper in it barely and
She gets more lines than Nicky.
it's true. It's true. She does. But like the thing that I found interesting, and this is always something that's going to stand out for me, is there wasn't like female bickering in this movie in the way that you would expect there to be, and a lot of them are mad at
The men's.
right as opposed to
There's Jennifer catches some shit that is undeserved, I felt like.
that's fair. I think the conversation between her and Valerie Harper starts off really shitty, like, but then it's one of those things where like you realize that she might not be scolding her for like the thing you think she is. It's more like you're ruining your life over this,
right.
you know? And I was like, okay. And then they're fine after that. So I was like, okay, like
Yeah.
you're not, you know, I mean, she does say some shit where she's like, keep away from the knives or whatever. And I'm like, girl, calm the fuck
I know
down.
the suicide jokes are a little much.
Good Lord.
A little rich.
Yeah. But like, but it's not, but it doesn't happen in a way that's like, you're a slut, you're a whore, you're, you know,
Corrupting.
yeah. It's not like, it's not done in that way. So that was like an interesting sort of like, huh. I'm like, yeah, I mean, anyone would be mad over this happening. So, but I do feel like all the men also walk away pretty unscathed, which I'm like,
Right. Yeah.
that's not cool. That's pretty not great.
Also, dude got divorced and then immediately remarried.
His wife, yeah.
Shut up. Didn't need that.
And also like, yeah, there's so much. Yeah. So the plot. Okay, so the plot of Blame It on Rio is these two white dudes that live in
Sao Paulo.
yeah, decide to take their family on a trip to Rio, obviously.
San Paulo is where all the work gets done. Where all the fun gets done is in Rio, which is where my wife Karen and I decided to spend our last vacation.
Somehow I'd never made it there. By all accounts, the most exciting, the most sensuous city in the world. I didn't know if this was actually true, but after 20 years of marriage, any fantasy helps.
Michael Caine's, his wife is like, I'm not going with you. I'm going somewhere else. You can go by yourself, and you need to think about things because I'm not sure, you know.
Yeah, the day they're leaving.
Yeah.
They're like literally packing.
Right. Yeah.
And the friend shows up to be like, I got 2 cabs downstairs.
Right. Yeah.
And she's like, I'm not, you're
Yeah.
going to Rio.
Yeah, I'm not.
I'm going to Bahia.
Yeah. And so, but the other baloney, his wife is divorcing him, so she's not going, obviously. And so it ends up being just the two of them with their teenage daughters in Rio. And so they're just like sort of all well, everyone but Michael Caine, who's like just, you know, sad. they're all sort of like, let's just have fun while we're here. The weird thing is for Nikki and Jennifer, which is Demi Moore and the other girl, yeah, for them being like best friends, they like don't interact like at all. They sleep in the same bedroom, but they don't seem to talk.
Well, they don't really. Yeah, I mean,
I'm
I do
like,
like you get the one scene where Jennifer's like, "Do you hate me?" And Nikki says, "No, him."
Yeah.
Which is basically all they. Nikki gets it from
Yeah. Oh yeah,
the
for
minute
sure.
it happens.
Yeah.
She
knows
reads
exactly.
the whole
Yeah.
thing, but then she's off just hanging out with
Yeah.
boys and having having fun
Right,
or whatever
yeah.
on her own terms. Not a character otherwise.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. But she's like, I do like the part because when she's like in the scene where she's like, do you hate me? And she's like, no, him. And she's like, does he tell you he loves you? And she's like, no. And she's like, well, get used to it.
yeah.
And I was like, oh. And then it ends with him like trying to tell, I mean, it doesn't end like this, but at the end, he's like, he's talking to his own daughter and he's like, and she's like, I love you too, Dad. And I'm like, oh,
Why are you letting
he
him
doesn't
off?
even learn. You don't even let
Yeah.
him learn. So like shit like that, I was like, what is going on?
Also,
Are they
he should-
playing basketball on the wall. Oh, they're just playing with the baby.
That trampoline they got. I was like, oh, is he going to apologize? Not even
Right?
that.
Yeah. Right. There's no like,
No one acknowledges her hardly.
yeah.
Like, and she's just left her own devices. Like, you can have a whole other arc where she gets
Yeah.
knocked up or something.
Right. There's no.
I mean, they're only there for a month or whatever.
I do
but
love that they're like, okay, well, all this has happened, but we're gonna go ahead and leave, and you two teenagers can just stay here by yourselves.
I do
I'm
kind of
like,
love some of that.
I'm like, okay, it's just it's an interesting thing to me because like the parents seem so like for
It's inconceivable for.
yeah, something that's so infuriating is this is 1980 fucking 4 that this came out. And the parents are so much more forgiving about their teenage daughter's sexuality.
Yeah.
Like Michael Caine is like basically saying like there's a conversation between the two dads and they're talking about like their daughters going on the pill
Right.
and what their stance is on it. And like Michael Caine was like, she asked to go on the pill and he's like, did you let her? And he's like, oh, of course we did. And he's like, why? And he's like, cause what if
Right.
she's asking to, then she needs to,
Right.
because the alternative is much worse
Right.
than her going on the pill. And then he was like, what about you? And he like, Michael Caine has already slept with this guy's daughter. And he's like, she asked to go on the pill. He's like, I had the opposite reaction or something. And he was like,
Right.
and he's like, but then he says, I told her that it's her decision. Like, it's not my decision. It's her decision whether or not she wants to go on the pill. The only thing I care about is that she lets me know before she has sex. And Michael Caine's like, what? Which is like, it's disturbing, but also I'm like, this is so progressive considering that they're
Yep.
like, they're not saying it in the sense of like, oh, like now, like a lot of like teenagers being on birth control, like I think that it's a heavy conversation, not because of things like, pregnancy or sex really, but it's more so because there can be adverse effects to birth control that a lot of people aren't aware of. And I think, just putting your kid on birth control can be hormonally not great, and it needs to be done under like doctor supervision, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't be allowed to. It doesn't mean that they, it just means that you need to be aware and these things need to be like done with medical professionals. That's all. But like, if your kid is wanting to go on the pill, there's a reason for that. And like nowadays it's always like, well, I went on the pill because I get pimples. And that's always what they say because it's like an excuse, which is like that is true. Some people have hormonal acne and they get put on birth control for it to help regulate their hormones. None of that is bad, but it's like, that's the way it gets talked about now, is like for a teenager to go on birth control, it's probably just because they get pimples. And I'm like, that's so fucking weird that birth control, yeah, it's so fucking weird. And I'm like, this movie is like 40 years old and it has more progressive views on the sexuality of young women than now. And I'm like, oh, oh my God. Not to say this movie is unproblematic and good.
Not at all.
However, like, how can, like, if you think about it, it's almost more enraging to think of it in those terms that, like, you are in this problematic sort of film having a progressive view of sexuality, and you're like, what the fuck? Ugh. Anyway. So they get to Rio, and it's just Michael Caine, Baloney, and their 2 teenage daughters. And immediately, like, the teenage daughters are, like, showing their tits to everybody, which, hilariously, the beach that they recorded on, or, like, that they filmed on, is not a topless beach.
LOL.
It's not a topless beach, and I guess it's, like, not legal to, like, suntan there. It said something like that. Like, tanning isn't even, I don't know. Didn't really understand that part. I was
Wow.
like, so you can't, what is that? What? Anyway.
You can't loiter.
Right. I'm like, does that, you can only sweat? I was like, I don't really, whatever it said, I didn't quite get what it meant. But anyway. And so, like, that kind of thing is a very interesting thing as well, because it's like, there's a sense of desexualizing them too, because they're topless and their dads are like, whoa, you're topless. But they're on in the film, they're on a topless beach, and they're like, okay, like, because the culture is different and they're acclimating, and they're not trying to, like, they're not going topless because they're trying to attract men. They're going topless because it's not culturally frowned upon.
Right.
And so both of them in front of their own fathers are topless, and it's an interesting scene to me because they're like sort of like razzing their dads for being uncomfortable. They're like, wow, you're embarrassed at this, or like, that's stupid. And I'm like, that's also a very interesting thing, because again, like, women's bodies are so regulated and hypersexualized at the same time. And that's part of why regulating is so bad, because you hypersexualize, you, like, in regulating bodies, you end up hypersexualizing, like, people at a very young age.
Yeah, right.
Which is like the opposite of what it, quote, intends to do. But that's sort of the intention, is to, like, hypersexualize people so that you can regulate them in a very, like, sadistic and fucked up way. But so yeah, like, so much about this movie is, like, super problematic, but it's also super interesting the way that that these fathers act towards their daughters. And it's like, he's not pissed at his daughter for having sex. He's pissed that she's having sex with an older guy. I mean, he doesn't know at first, you know, like, all this shit that's, like, going on. There's a lot of it that he's like, this guy's married, and, like, you know, there's so much about it. It's, like, really, really interesting. And it's a really fascinating look to see, like, how these fathers are behaving towards their daughters, and, like, where the problems are. Like, one of them is like Michael Caine's whole thing is that he doesn't pay enough attention.
Right.
And that's the whole thing. And so his daughter's, like, hardly ever around, and he doesn't really seem to have a care or notice or understand or give a shit. And, like, that's the whole point with him. And the other guy, his problem is that I don't really know what his problem is supposed to be. It's, I guess, like, I think he just, like, more so that, like, nothing, as long as he's, like, doing what he want, like, as long as everybody's doing what they want, no one will be unhappy. And it's like, that means that he's unhappy because everybody's doing what they want. And so he's like, oh, I don't actually like this, you know, but at the same time, you know, so it's like, there's a little bit of, like, hypocrisy in his, like, life the way he lives life. But yeah, I don't, whatever. It comes out at the end that Michael Caine was sleeping with his daughter, and then Michael Caine's wife shows up, and it's revealed that him and Baloney, or her and Baloney, were hooking up. And
That's one of the reasons
Yeah.
she went to Bahia
Right.
instead of coming to Rio with them.
and like it's such a weird sort of dynamic, and he's like,
I appreciated that. It doesn't. It has a complexity. It doesn't
Yeah.
forgive
correct,
people, but it has another layer of messiness
right?
that
Right.
feels accurate.
Well, yeah, right.
You know, and like
Yeah, it's super fat. It's a. Okay, I was like, did I push record? I did.
Oh,
I
no.
did push record. Don't worry about it. Don't worry. Yeah, there's just so much about it.
I was very surprised at my ability to sympathize with Michael Caine's character. I did not expect to.
I thought I was gonna have a much worse
Yeah.
view of this movie watching now than I did before.
Yeah,
and I was
right.
like, I don't. I mean, I want to emphasize, this is
No, it's not cool.
a fucked up movie. This is a
Shouldn't
very
exist.
fucked up movie. When she's like, my retainer just got, like,
Tightened.
I'm like, oh god,
Yeah, it was rough.
This is so painful. And like, yeah, there's just so much that you're like,
Yeah.
oh fuck, it's so like cringy and.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think they do like not a great job. I mean, well, they do a great job at it, but it's like, again, it's that like problematic thing of like the young girls coming on to me. I couldn't help myself.
No, yeah,
Which is
and-
like, the whole
right.
point is like, that shouldn't matter. It's
Correct.
like, if a child is coming on to you, like,
Well, and then
Who gives a
and
shit?
then the
Like-
whole quandary of he caught feelings too.
yeah.
What?
the love stuff is
That's what I
very
mean.
strange. Where how immediately she's like, I love you so much. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you gotta run away when people start saying that shit.
Yeah.
Love is bad. We all
And I know
this.
this is, of course, an oversimplification and not.
Bring it on, girl. Bring
No,
it on.
I mean, it's an obvious thought experiment
Yeah.
that it's like if you gender swapped,
Yeah. Right.
you know,
For
if
sure.
if it was a mom
yeah.
and a young son,
Yeah.
it'd be like fine.
Right.
Except
right.
when she catches feelings, and
Right.
then it's Mary Kay Letourneau.
Right.
being a
Yeah,
predator.
Right.
Whereas Michael Caine's never really treated as a predator.
Right. He's treated as like a victim of
Well, I mean, like
circumstance,
all the other two adults are mad at him for.
Yeah, but they don't seem to be mad at him because he slept with a teenager. They're mad at him because they know who it is.
Because it's her. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's fair.
And it's like,
Yeah. If she'd been Brazilian,
right. Well, then she would have just been slut shamed like crazy. They would have been like, she's a whore.
it would have been obvious, of course.
Well, yeah, of course.
And at least, thankfully, I appreciated that they give Victor Bologna his one hookup is with someone age appropriate.
Yeah, correct. And I was like, this dude is very much attracted to women of his own age. Like he hooked up with Michael Caine's wife.
Right.
He's like no one that he like, because they see like some younger girls and he's like, oh, let's buy them drinks. And then he looks over and he sees like a woman that like seems mature,
Yeah, that's one of my
smoking
favorite
a cigar, and he's like, that's my kind of guy.
Look at that.
The one with the cigar. You like her?
That lady is my kind of guy.
And I was like, oh, and it's very clear that she's not young. I mean, I don't want to say she's like old, but like,
Right.
she's like, I'm like, they both like talk about how she's divorced. She's getting a divorce. And he's like, oh, me too. And he's like, how long have you been separated? She's like, 12 days. And she's like, in those 12 days, I've had 12 lovers. And he's like, whoa. But then it's like, it keeps showing him like, I'm like, oh, all the people that he's hooking up with are like his age.
Are there others?
Well, just Valerie Harper and this person.
Oh, yeah.
But so but it's not showing him with anyone else. It's not
Right.
showing him trying to hook up with younger. It's nothing.
Right.
He doesn't even remotely flirt with or notice Nicky or whatever. And so
Thankfully.
right. And
Which
so,
was my initial once yesterday when I was like, I had
yeah.
I'd purposely not tried to figure out what this was about or anything, but
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah,
I saw
yeah,
this
yeah.
one photo. It's just the four of them.
Yeah.
And look-
Right.
And I'm like, uh-oh. Is it
Right.
like crisscross?
Yeah. Chris Ross, applesauce. But I honestly didn't remember if that happened at the time, so I couldn't. I was like, I don't think they do, but it might be like that's how he gets back at him. Is like I don't like threatens to
Right.
or die. I was like, I don't remember. I knew that there was some sort of like betrayal on both sides, but I was like, am I misremembering that?
Right,
I was
right,
like, I
right.
don't know. All I remembered
Man,
was
they
that
really save it. They really backload it.
all I remembered was that she was 13 and I didn't get that right. And again, I was like, what did I see like a different version of it? Because I know that there was this there's this movie that is about like an affair between like a girl and like a I don't know.
Lolita.
No, it's not Lolita, but it's like sort of. It's like she's English and he's like Chinese or Japanese or something. I don't remember. Sorry,
Racist.
I know. And she's like going to, she like goes, it might be China to like study or something. And her and him, but he's like older. They have this affair, and there's a scene where you can see her mouth when she's like, and the words say 17 or something like that, and her mouth says 14 or like 13 or something and I was like, oh, so I was like, did that happen with
19.
this? I'm 19. So I was like, is that what happened here? But then I was like, I was like, oh, they're actively not saying her age. She's not stating her age.
Right.
She doesn't say anything. I'm like, what was I?
Well, in her intro to camera, right? She's
Yeah.
talking about being just out of high school. That's part
Oh,
of it,
okay,
right? That's why she's in Connecticut.
Oh, I thought it was just summer break. Because that's why they were in Rio.
No, they're in Rio because they live and
Well,
work
no,
there.
I mean, that's what I thought about, like why they're all there for like a full month.
Oh,
is
yeah,
because
I see.
it's a summer break.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Check the footage.
But anyway, yeah, I just feel I'm like, what? I really don't. I have no idea where that. Yeah,
Well,
maybe I did
sorry.
the math wrong or something. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'm not bothered by the fact that it's a more appropriate or whatever, less horrific, less horrifically. There we go. Whoa. Less horrifically inappropriate or bad, whatever. But yeah, like that's pretty much the movie is just like Michael Caine repeatedly trying to tell her that he's not
Right.
interested and her being like LOL and just them having sex.
Right.
Which is really cool and not at all fucked up. But yeah, that sort of thing is like I'm curious about the French version because I'm sure the French version is much more salacious.
Potentially.
Because a lot of times, like
Mostly, it's just that people are uglier.
that
The men, especially.
yeah, that. But also, like I know that like I've talked about this before. I don't remember if it was on the podcast, but I've told you about this. Insomnia, the movie
Yes.
Insomnia.
Starring Martin.
Yes, starring Martin. I fucking can't stand that movie.
Yeah.
It's stupid. I
It's
don't
Al
like.
Pacino.
I fucking hate Al Pacino. Like I cannot stress this enough. If Al Pacino is in something, I'm gonna be like, no thanks. Like I've never watched any of his younger stuff, but I don't give a shit. Like I cannot stand the man. 90s on anything I've seen from it, I don't give a shit. Like people are like, he's such a good actor. No, he's not. He just screams and yells. He does not emote whatsoever. He just gets louder. I hate him. Anyway, in Insomnia, there's a scene where he's in the car. He's driving in a car with like a young
Oh, yeah, right.
girl and he's like trying to get information out of her. And there's like a sort of like back and forth that like almost implies that there's a flirtation or something going
Right.
on. And then it's just like, it's very abrupt.
Isn't the original Swedish?
Yes. And
Okay.
I'm gonna get there. It's like he gets out, like he stops and gets out of the car and is like, oh my God. Oh, and he just starts Al Pacinoing the scene. And so you don't really
Yeah.
understand what's supposed to be going on because no acting is happening. He's just yelling. So I watched the original, which is Swedish and stars Stellan Skarsgård. And in the Swedish version, he's full on, like they're in the car and he's just like full on fingering this teenage girl in the car. And I was like, that did not happen in the American version. He's like just full, like, I mean, shouldn't say full on, it's movie implied. Like you don't,
Right.
you don't like literally see some shit. But I was just like, what the fuck? And it's like,
Honestly, between hearing that and Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, I'm like, what goes on with Swedish police? It's not.
yeah,
They seem a lot more ready to put that in some of their
right.
fiction than the U.S. does.
It's just, it was, I was like, oh.
Vincent Canby, reviewing Blame It on Rio, wrote, quote, "There's not a single funny or surprising moment in the movie. However, Blame It on Rio is not simply humorless, it also spreads gloom. It's one of those unfortunate projects that somehow suggests that everyone connected with the movie hated it and all of the other people involved."
Really? I don't get that from it.
Roger Ebert gave the film 1 star out of possible 4, writing, quote, "It's really unsettling to see how casually this movie takes a serious situation. A disturbed girl is using sex to play mind games with a middle-aged man, and the movie gets its yucks with slapstick scenes. What's shocking is how many first-rate talents are associated with this sleaze."
A disturbed girl? That's how wow. Someone hates women.
This young woman.
R.I.P.
He's clearly been the victim of.
That's so fucked up. That's such a fucked up way to look at it, too. Like, this adult man can't help himself around this disturbed girl who's just
She's playing
using
mind
her
games.
pussy to get what she wants. Like, what the fuck? Goodness. Wow. I've only been talking for
I know, that's why I said the thing that I said.
Yeah, I don't wanna yeah.
But don't you?
Well, I don't wanna end it super early or anything. Oh my Keith has switched which mic stand he uses and his
Remember the ditch witch?
what? What's that? The ditch
The gardening tool.
Oh. And his, in an attempt to not make noise with the arm mic stand that he was using, he
Arm mic
switched to, do you want to switch to this one? Like, do you want to, I don't know. It's just funny to me that you've made multiple requests that I not have a single hand on the microphone so that it won't make noise. You said that you wanted me to use a mic stand because it was too noisy when I was just holding the mic, and you are doing this. I feel targeted and attacked.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry you feel that way.
Girl. Yeah, how do you feel about I was unsure how to feel about some of the ritualistic stuff that they show because I feel like
Oh yeah,
I was like
gross.
I was like I can't tell if it was one of those things where they just hired people that live there or to do things and just sort of trying to show the culture,
Yeah.
because I don't know anything about it to
Well,
be
the
able to.
shit, like the wedding seemed
Yeah,
plausible and
that
fine
was-
and respectful
yeah.
to me. I don't know if it's accurate, but
Right, exactly.
the scenes where it's like him holding the candles and shit, and then doesn't she go one?
Yeah, she goes
before that. Mm-hmm. And it's like
Right.
throw some flowers in the water, and
Right.
if they come back, he doesn't love you.
Yeah.
Like some weird.
Yeah.
Who knows? Like it's
Yeah.
very plausible that there's some folk
Right. I couldn't.
loric
Yeah.
religion or spirituality that reflects, but like the way it's
Yeah.
presented is pretty fetishy.
For sure. Yeah. I was like, well, yeah, the wedding thing it was more interesting to me. That stuff I was like, okay, this feels more like they like saw that this was going on and were like, hey, can we film this stuff?
Yeah,
But
almost.
I was like, that might not be what was
I don't think so
happening.
because
So
I think the person who's the mom that he translates.
oh yeah.
She's
I didn't
an actress. I mean,
I
has
didn't
credits.
mean it like that. I meant like
Oh,
this was something that was happening
and they
already,
recreated.
and they recreated, or they were like, hey, can you like
Right.
extend this
Yeah.
while we film this or whatever? Like, I don't think that they like actually like they filmed an actual
like it was
wedding.
documentary.
Right. That's
style.
not what I mean. I more mean like they knew this was happening, so they tried to
Yeah.
coincide filming with this
Right.
thing that was happening so they could like have, but I don't, again, who fucking knows?
And you can't blame the original for this one because the original said it's in Saint Tropez,
Where's that
in
at?
France.
Oh, okay. It's so interesting to me though, because like, oh, what?
Well, I just wanted to say that it does. I appreciated that it does show, or at least hints at, that there are black folks in Brazil.
Oh yeah, it
and that
definitely
it's-
shows that. Yeah.
That they're not. You know that it's.
Yeah. That they're there. That it's not like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And again, it's sort of fetishized in the way it's shown because it's the only time you see them is
Yeah.
in this
Right.
ritualistic.
Well, the wedding, a lot of like the car, like when the cars are passing
Oh,
them
yeah.
by, there's a lot of like when anything involved with the wedding is you see a lot of like black folks.
Uh-huh.
Which again, I'm like, that's what sort of made me think it was something
Yeah,
that they
right.
somewhat not, because I'm like, there's no way that they're going to be like, hey, Brazil, which is, famous for, you know what I mean? It's going to be like colorism exists, like they're not going to be like, let's only showcase darker skinned people. They're going to like, even like with the more, like you said, the more like fetishy sort of like scenes, it's all like lighter skinned people doing it. So like, but in the wedding and the ceremonial stuff and all the performances that they're doing, like the
Oh, I see.
dances, it's all like dark skinned people, or,
I guess so.
assumption is, so that's sort of what made me feel like maybe they were filming or like came upon like somebody that was doing like, this is like actually these performers or like what they do.
Right.
But again, I could be wrong, but like that's part of what brought me to that conclusion, because I'm like, well, these are not
Right.
these are not light-skinned people. So, but again, who fucking knows? Maybe they did that to make it more fetishizing.
Yeah,
Who
right.
fucking knows? Anyway, but yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, I couldn't tell how I really felt about some of that stuff,
Yeah.
because it was like, I do think, I don't know, I felt like in a lot of ways they didn't, like it was very clearly like an affluent people are coming
Yeah.
to like like not exploit, but like just, live off of, like they have a maid and like all this shit, who's like the butt of the joke. I do think it's funny when he says, I've heard enough out of you, because she doesn't speak at all in the movie. But again, I'm like, do we really have to do that? Where it's
Yeah.
like literally like,
Right.
she doesn't, it's not like she speaks a different language that they don't understand.
We
She
haven't talked
doesn't.
about the neighbor guy.
Right. I was going to say, like, he comes along.
I thought he was a great character.
He's great. Yeah, it's just like there's a lot of like weird things in the movie,
Yeah.
culturally speaking, like how they interact with the culture is like anything goes, but also like we're not from here, you know.
Also, there's constantly birds in every scene,
It really is. Yeah.
indoors and out.
Yeah. I mean, where they're staying looks so fucking cool, but
The
I
house?
hate, yeah,
Yeah.
like how it's just looks like so nice, but also I'm like, no, I would hate to be there. I was telling Keith, I was like, all these like tropical places get so like sort of romanticized in movies and films or in TV and films and stuff like that. People are like, oh, and I'm like, man, all I can think is like, there's just bugs everywhere. It's humid. It's hot. It's gross.
It's gonna smell.
It's just, yeah, it's not fun. Only because I've lived in an environment like that. I'm not just being shitty about.
During my brief time in Guadalajara, outside of Guadalajara, Mexico, which is not that humid compared to other parts of Mexico.
Right.
And the week I spent on St. Kitts,
Yeah.
can confirm and agree, like it wouldn't be fun for
Yeah, no, it's
much longer.
I would not want to, especially I wouldn't want to go there like during the summer, like when
No,
it's
that's why you go to those places during the winter.
yeah. Ooh. And a lot of places like a lot of things that get like sort of romanticized or like the way it's a thing that doesn't really appeal to me as a human being. Like a lot of these like open spaces where there's like no walls or like they like
Oh, like an open floor
yeah,
plan
I'm like,
kind of thing?
that's okay. I don't mean like there. I mean like literally like it's just like there's not like there's just like a roof and then like
Oh, I see. Yeah.
and so like like you can see you can wake up to the ocean and I'm like
Yeah.
and also
Everything else.
yeah like bugs and birds and like all this shit they're just gonna fly in there and like ooh like
Lizards
yeah I'm like sort of like huts.
Right.
And where it's like there's no there's no walls.
Right.
It's just I'm like, ugh, I don't want to do that. Like, and it always gets romanticized in like a very like you can come here and experience this, and people will take care of all the things for you. You can just lay around, and
right.
I'm like, but here's the thing, bugs
Don't give a
exist.
book.
Like,
Yeah.
and it's so like all that sort of like touristy shit always grosses me out so
No,
much.
absolutely.
Where
It's
like,
very Victorian
come
and very
here,
colonial
yeah.
and very all that. I mean, bro,
Like-
I went to
oh god, what is it? That place that's like just oh god, I can't think of what it is. It's like basically exists just for people to come. It's like islands that just exist for people to like visit, and it's just like
Hawaii,
no, not no, no.
Epstein's Island,
no shit. It's like
Dubai.
Dubai. That's what it is. Yeah, like
think it's
that
an
shit
island,
is.
but
It's not. I thought it was like.
I think
thought
it's
it was
kind
like
of a
cluster.
peninsula. I'm
Okay.
not sure.
It's
I could be wrong.
just Dubai is
No,
terrifying
hideous.
to me. Oh my
The
god.
worst place on earth, as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned.
I'm like, ooh, anything I learn about it, I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's similar to like Hawaii or anything like that, where it's like the people that live there are like, do not come here. Oh, I don't know if you saw this. Miami is putting out because like all the shit that's happened over spring break at Hawaii, not Hawaii, Miami. Did I say Hawaii? Whatever. In Miami,
You said Miami.
the past like couple years, like they've just had like crazy shit going on. They basically are doing a campaign where they're like, don't come here for spring break. We don't want you here.
Nice.
Like literally saying, we don't want you here. And it's like they're doing things to keep people from visiting them. Like they're making like parking is like $100.
Wow.
Like they're increasing parking rates.
Oh, that's cool. We were just making it so that the most wealthy people come, and who are the people who
No, but like there's
afford
curfews, there's curfews, like all this shit that they're doing to keep people from wanting to be there. Like
Yeah.
you're not allowed
Okay.
to like I don't know, it's like stuff that's I think it's like stuff that's like doesn't affect locals.
Uh-huh.
but is like for visitors. Like all the shit around spring break is like
Cool.
like raising prices on everything, making things like close early, like all this shit where they're like, we're not going to make this fun for you. And like the campaign is like this commercial.
R.I.P. Burning Man.
The commercial is just them just kind of being like, hey, we need to talk. Like they're like, we want to end
Parents
this.
sitting down with her.
No, it's like a breakup. They're like, we can't keep going like this. They're like,
Hilarious.
They're like, we've outgrown you.
We're not good for each other.
Yeah. They're like, we've outgrown you, and
That's
we really
hilarious.
need to. Yeah, it's very funny.
Hey, we need to talk.
This isn't working anymore.
And it's not us. It's you. We just want different things. So, we're breaking up with you.
And don't try to apologize and come crawling back. This isn't safe, so we're done.
And just so you know, we're serious.
This March, you can expect things like curfews, bag checks, and restricted beach access.
DUI checkpoints, $100 parking, and
Would you Would you recommend this movie?
No,
Okay.
but honestly, we've watched worse movies.
For sure, we've watched worse movies. I would say this. I would suggest this in a similar way that I would suggest Nuts, in that I think it's a good sort of like film to like look at parallels of how like teenagers
Right.
are portrayed in film now.
Right.
How like just. I just think it's like a very interesting sort of, for the ways, how it talks about sexuality and like the fathers like discussing why they want their daughters to go on birth control, or, all of these things, all of these conversations that are like absolutely taboo now.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's a very, I think it would be an interesting thing to like,
Right.
to show in like a class of
Well, and
feminist theory
the
or
reason I
something.
was like, oh, was this a remake of a French film, is because I was instantly reminded of La Cage aux Folles.
Right. Yeah.
Excuse me, The Birdcage.
Yeah. No, that it makes sense when I saw that you were like watching. I didn't even all I saw was a girl singing happy birthday or whatever.
Yeah.
In a French accent. I was like, "Oh, it was a French movie first. Duh." Like that's all it took. I was like, "Right, that makes so much sense that it was a French movie first." Like it instantly clicked for me. So yeah, I get why you were like, "Was this a?" I just was stupid and was like, "No."
It also fucking Three Fugitives.
That's right.
I think it's funny because it's part of it is that the way the film looks, like literally everything seems kind of hazy, and that's a choice the Americans are making.
Well, also it's like it doesn't seem like an 80s movie to me. It does seem
it feels very 70s.
like a 70s film to me. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
Like visually, everything about it, the way it's shot, the characters, so much about it, the way that they're dressing, everything. I'm like, this feels like it was made in 1978. Like I feel like I'm watching a 1970s film. I do not feel like I'm watching a 1980s film. So that's another aspect of it that's very interesting, where it's like it feels older. It's talking about things more progressively than it would now, and it's like so much is like very confusing about the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I would recommend it just for like casual viewing, because it's definitely like Also, hilariously, so funny. I started watching the Quiet on Set documentary before we started this, so I was like,
Perfect timing.
maybe
Well, and not for nothing, as you told me, some trivia for
the French film.
Un moment de rangement.
Yeah.
The French version. In a wild moment is how it gets translated. The analogous character of Jennifer, the French actress,
Yeah.
was late. They couldn't start shooting. She was delayed because she was on, quote, disinfectants.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
I don't.
Right.
I wonder if that's a mistranslation of
Probably
antibiotics or something.
Yeah.
That she was on. She had a reaction to these
Yeah.
medications that she was on because
She'd
had
slipped
been-
into a coma because she had a
Right.
reaction to these medications that she was put on after she had been raped. I was like, oh Oh my God.
And also 17.
Yeah. Oh my God. What a horrible thing. I yeah. Oh, sorry. What were you saying?
I'll just say I'm never going to feel good like as you read the things people tell themselves and are told. I don't think it's actually cool that a 17-year-old, even if they're 18,
Yeah. Yeah.
that everybody signed on for this girl to be topless and to be in a movie where she has to be implied sexual relationship with a man
much older,
20 to 30 years older than her.
With anyone.
I don't
honestly.
need that.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
We probably shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
Like you want to talk about that as a concept. I don't know. Do it in literature. I don't need or animated if you really need to visualize it. But then definitely don't give those people who make that animation jobs in children's television.
Yeah, something that I think is like I sort of hate like the arbitrary thing where people will say like the moment I turned 18, I did this, thing where I know someone who like proudly declares that as soon as the clock struck 12, they took their tits out for the internet. And I'm like, there is no difference between 11:59 you and 12:01 you.
No.
Like there's no difference. And like that sort of arbitrary rule is like, I'm not saying that you can't have your own, like you can't own your body. You can't decide what you want to do with it. None of that. But like if someone like that arbitrary moment where you turn 18 doesn't magically make you an adult with an adult mindset and people,
legally yes, but that's
correct.
All that's why it's arbitrary.
Exactly. And so like if somebody's a monster for being for it being 17, they're the same monster.
Correct.
When you're 18 and it's 12:01, like
18 and 12 minutes old.
Yeah. Like there's no, it does not matter. Like, and that sort of like arbitrary thing is like, like 17 doesn't make it that much worse than 18.
Correct.
Like what you were saying, like it's not something where it's like, I understand why the law is there. I understand why these specific things take place, but it's also very uncomfortable where like, you are legally an adult, but you're also a teenager, which is like those two things existing at the same time.
I don't feel better that the fact that like in this case her parents signed off on it.
Right, exactly. Right. And from watching things like Quiet on Set, you'll know that like sometimes parents get tricked and fooled and they don't always know. And
absolutely.
It's not, and sometimes they're not paying attention and other times they're lied to
actively
as well.
Manipulated as well. Yes.
So it's like, this is not a case of like, well, as long as her parents were okay with it, it's like, that's fucked up. Like she was a kid, but if she had turned 18 5 minutes before filming started, she would still be the same. Like her body did not change. Right. It's an arbitrary number. Your body at 11:59 does not does not magically change in the 1 minute. It goes from 11:59.
And as we know now, like for like your frontal lobe or whatever doesn't.
Right. It doesn't
finish developing until your mid-20s.
Yeah.
Early
25 is roughly the age where your frontal lobe develops fully. I mean, granted, that's like an arbitrary number. It might be a little bit younger.
It's different for everybody. And also it's not going to be a thing that is overnight either.
Right. But this is also something when people, like it's just, I feel like it's very strange, the obsession with 18. And like it's very much like okay.
It's very transparent.
Yeah, it
about
is
what it is.
Yeah,
like especially since it's not universal.
Yeah,
other places most places have younger ages of consent.
17 is, I think, New York. I think is 17.
Oh, I didn't know statewide.
State is different. Yeah, it varies. I think in some places it's 14.
What is it? The Alabama of Europe.
Right, and In many in many ways, yes. So it's it's like it can be different for wherever you are. And that's a very again, it's a very arbitrary thing. Now, granted, if you're in New York and you're 17 and you're posting nudes and someone in like, Florida or something sees it, and the age of consent, like if you're sharing something with someone in a state
Yeah.
then it will still apply to that state. Like you're not just going by the rules.
Good to know.
Like your state doesn't, the state with the lower consent age is not where they pull that from. Like if it's going on in a state that's, yeah, as I think is what, if I'm not mistaken, like if you're, it's still, you're still, but also like fucked up things can happen where like you can get in trouble as a youth for like sending nudes because you're distributing child pornography.
Yeah.
So like this is again, these are like things, in the post I was talking about yesterday. Education around this kind of thing is important because just saying it's bad or it's wrong doesn't indicate how or why, and when you do things like what this film does, which is like show that someone with their parents' consent was naked, like you're explaining that like, well, it's fine if someone else signs off on it, if an adult signs off on it. It's like that's not that's not how that works. That shouldn't be how that works, and again, it's like twisting the narrative a little bit to be like, well, if it's for a good reason or it's like there's never there can't be that sort of like wishy-washy,
It's a fucking movie. It
Exactly.
doesn't need
There's
to be made.
Right, exactly.
Fuck off.
And there's no reason that they're at no point, like it's weird in the scene where they're topless though. Like I was thinking about this when we were watching it because they're on the beach. Demi Moore's hair is like covering her boobs, and this girl who's like young, like she looks so young too.
Yeah,
her hair's up and her tits are just fully out, and she's just like and like it's the only scene that you see Demi Moore nude in, like even remotely nude in, and most of the time her hair's covering her boobs. And I'm like, she doesn't look comfortable in the scene. She looks it does not seem like she wants to be viewed. It doesn't seem like she's very like hunched over, making sure her hair, like it does not look comfortable. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like that's also like
no thanks.
I'm like, this feels gross. Like, but you're supposed to be like noticing Jennifer, not Nicky. So it's like, but yeah, it was like, it's a thing where you're like very uncomfortable, or at least you should be uncomfortable watching it. But again, I do think it's an interesting sort of conversation to have around like consent and all of these questions. This is a good movie that is a starting point for like having that sort of discussion of like, should this be legal? Should this be, like all of these things. I think this is a, not good like as in great, but good as in something.
Fertile. Useful. Pregnant. Why am I poop green?
Am I pregnant? Pregnant is so fucking funny to me.
Any mispronunciation of pregnant.
Yeah. Am I pregnant? Why am I poop green?
Speaking about what a slut Demi Moore is, apparently she was married already when she worked on this movie, but her husband didn't come with her to Brazil.
Yeah.
And she ended up hooking up with somebody else on set.
Nice. You go, girl. There's also Capiera in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Brazil.
There's some cordas.
Troca J. Cordoas.
Yeah, but there's no troca. There's just the codors.
I know,
cordas.
but I just like saying the whole phrase.
That's fine.
Cordoas. Anyway, I have to diarrhea.
Douche. Coo. Lou. Poo poo.
What if we acted like fools, broke a few rules? What do we care? Blame it on Rio. What if we both went a little bit crazy? Blame it on Rio. What if our hearts got a little bit hazy? Blame it on Rio. What if we acted like fools, broke a few rules? What do we care? Blame it on Rio. Rio de Janeiro. Rio de Janeiro. Bum, 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 bum.
Sentences.
Sandwiches.